in my personal opinion, I think Hot Springs was probably the best of that series.
Thank you, Mark.
But in terms of entertainment value for a guy who shoots,
Yeah.
Pale Horse Coming.
Yeah, that was, I would like, you know, a lot of, see, you're getting it, and people in gun culture get it. And one of the things that is one of my little secrets is that a lot of the characters and a lot of the plot gambits and a lot of the gunfights themselves are drawn from what might be called classical gun culture. And outsiders don't recognize that. You know, that book, there's 6 old gunmen come into the book, and if you know your gun culture history, you know who they are. And that's how that book started. I thought, wouldn't it be great if someone put together a super posse of these guys who were famous in the 50s? And then I had that idea, and then I tried to think, you know, because it's the 50s, who could they attack? You know, who could they raid? Okay, and I tried a bunch of scenarios, and I came up with a racist prison camp in Mississippi, and I had lots of fun. It was lots of fun, and people seem to like that book. It's a book that still gets read and tossed, and I still get emails asking, you know, which one was Charles Atkins and which one was Elmer Keith and that sort of thing. So I had fun with that. And the new book, I Sniper, is also based on a lot of characters out of politics and particularly out of gun culture. And if you know your gun culture, you'll understand who the antecedents are. And I hope that provides an extra level of pleasure for people inside.
Now, in I Sniper, you set what really is the classic gun culture, as you talked about before, against technology. I mean, what was kind of your inspiration when you turned to I Sniper?
Well, I've always been attracted to snipers. I will say this was a peculiar book because Simon & Schuster wasn't interested in all the other books I came up with. They wanted me to go back and do a classic Bob book. And from my emails and from comments on Amazon and all the websites, I realized that people were really hungry for me to do a classic sniper book. So I took an idea that I'd had 15 years ago. I'd had it, and I thought it was a very good premise, but I could never figure out quite how to end it. And every ending I came up with was lousy. And so I took that premise, and I finally, 15 years later, I figured out where it could go and what would be interesting about it. And suddenly at that point, it took off. It became very vivid for me. And of course, you're always looking for dichotomies. And 15 years ago, there never would have been the issue of mil-dot versus computer chip. It just didn't exist. But suddenly I saw that as a dichotomy, as a way of distinguishing the two sides and contrasting the wisdom of a veteran and the savvy and the experience against the high-tech gizmo of the bad guy. And I saw that could make a really interesting sort of way to set the book up. And also, it expressed my fear and loathing of the complexity of long-distance shooting. I mean, I look at, some of these ballistic-driven devices. I can't even get into the second paragraph of the instructions. It's so, you need a PhD in, I don't know what, in engineering to, maybe someday some smarter guy will take me to a range with a Horus and explain to me how it works. But it was pretty baffling, and my hostility to it probably informed the book to some degree.
Yeah, the first time, I think it was Shepherd, I was used to double, just a regular
I have one
duplex.
of those sitting on my bench because I had it on every rifle. I could never figure out how to work it. It totally baffled me. So,
Look through it and you go, what could all of that possibly
yeah,
do?
exactly. Well, some of them, you look through the reticle, and there's more information on the reticle than there is 1,000 yards away. It's like a page in an encyclopedia. All these little diagrams and curves and, whether, it's baffling for me.
I'll tell you, the only way to do it is to pick one,
Yeah.
take the manual to the range with you, and just stick with it.
No,
just
you're
keep,
right.
Just
Yeah,
keep shooting, and
Yeah.
and it'll eventually go click. Oh, I
Yeah,
get this.
yeah.
And then when you don't use it for another 6 months, you go out and try it again.
You got
you
to
can't
start
remember
all
it.
over again, yeah.
American Gunfight was
Yeah.
a departure for you.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a novel.
Right.
And it wasn't about criticism. What were the challenges and what were you hoping to accomplish?
I had always wanted to write the story of a single gunfight. I enjoy writing nonfiction. There's a species of nonfiction called the nonfiction novel. Is what Truman Capote. It was the coinage he came up with it, and I had for years and years had an idea about writing a story of a gunfight, and I looked at various candidates, and many of them had been done to death. OK Corral, plus the politics of the OK Corral they're denser than the reticle of a Horus site. They're incredibly complicated, and most gunfight politics are incredibly complicated. But I had in my memory, I hadn't thought of it consciously. I had in my memory a little snippet of an image of a policeman taking a shot at Blair House and saving Harry Truman's life at the expense of his own life. And I finally remembered that was in 1950. And I thought maybe I could write that story, but I thought surely someone has already written it. And I was astounded to find out it had almost totally disappeared from public view. So I got this bee in my bonnet to write the story. But one of my problems is I'm basically kind of lazy. So I asked my good friend and hunting partner, John Bainbridge, a retired lawyer in Baltimore County and an ex-newspaper friend, if he would do the research. And John went nuts on the research. I mean, we looked into this. He did most of the research. I laid out the book, I tried to lay it out like a novel, tried to play some of the novelist games, tried to bring a kind of a reality to it that you only find in nonfiction novels, not in nonfiction per se. And what I wanted was the best account of a gunfight that anybody ever written. I don't know if I accomplished that, but again, although the book wasn't a huge success when it was first published, I'm gratified to know that it's still in print, and I still quite regularly, people are gradually beginning to discover it. It's now sold at the Harry Truman Library, and there was a time when it was being passed around the Secret Service, and it was being passed around the White House, not under President Obama, but under President Bush. There was a time when it was sort of the hot book that was being read in the White House. And I'm actually kind of proud of it because we did, those guys there were 3 or 4 people left, and we caught them right before they died. We caught them in this exquisite moment when they were finally ready to tell the truth. And we uncovered some things about it that, made it more realistic. I'm very proud of the job we did. There are things I would do differently if I had to do it again today. Some decisions I made that things didn't turn out as well. But basically, I'm very proud of that book.
It's the best description of a gunfight I've read.
Thank you, Mark. I love to hear that.